For me to go from where I am at setup to impact, you should have and be feeling when you pose it a stretch up your left side and a crunch of your right side. So the right side crunch comes from right side bend. If I stood up and my right shoulder went down towards my right hip, that's right side bend. My right shoulder's getting closer to my hip, right? Now, as I turn towards the target as I do that, that's how I get that right shoulder crunch, the little lines in the shirt. That's part number one. I want to talk to you today about live view golf. Now, you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live view is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. Hey guys, Eric here out at the Don Law Golf Academy, a beautiful Osprey Point Golf Club in Boca Raton, Florida. In today's video, we have another really good one. We're gonna talk about a left side stretch and right side crunch move and really dig into some of the details of what a really good tour-like impact position looks like, what are the key details, and then how exactly to get there and how that's gonna improve your ball striking. Before we hop over, as you guys are watching, if you do like the video, please do us a favor, click that little gray thumbs up button down below. It really helps out the channel. Would really appreciate that. Also, I'm super pumped to be able to announce and let you guys know that we are doing a 30-day money-back guarantee at CogornoGolf.com. That's right, you get the opportunity to try us out. Try out CogornoGolf.com. Try online coaching. If you've been on the fence with it, now's the perfect time. If you join and don't like it for whatever reason, simply cancel, send us a message within 30 days, and we'll send you every single penny you invested back. No questions asked, but I know you're gonna love it. It gives you everything you need. I think it's equally as, if not more effective than in-person coaching. You send us in your videos, we identify the priorities, what specific drills to do, what you're gonna feel, what not to feel, how many reps to do, what days a week. It's really specific and personalized. It's awesome. To me, there's nothing else like it in the world. You're gonna really love that. You're gonna love our community. And again, either you like it and you stick with us and you found an awesome way of an improvement beyond these YouTube videos, or you don't, and it's absolutely zero risk. So, okay, tour-like impact. Now, what we're gonna do before we start is actually hop over. I wanna show you some examples, point out some of the details. We'll come back here. I'll show you how to train it, how to feel it, how you can improve your impact position, hopefully be like some of those tour players.
Okay guys, so a couple pieces that I want you to see here. I just have Justin Thomas set up on the left and then obviously the impact on the right. Now the two key pieces we're going to focus in on here is going to be look at the distance between his right shoulder and his right hip at setup, and then look at the distance between his right hip and right shoulder at impact. Now if we were to measure the distance of those two, we can see that the right shoulder and right hip get closer together at impact compared to where they were at setup, and that's happening from this right side bend. You can see that shirt sort of folded up there, that right side bend. So it's clearly much more in right side bend, right shoulder closer to the left, or right shoulder closer to the right hip at impact than he was at setup. Now also note, what I really want you to look at, what's clear to see is the hips are way more open, right? At setup, the hips are relatively square. At impact, they're open there quite a bit, probably 45 degrees or so. But also look at the rib cage. It's easy for us, and I fall into the trap too, looking just at the hips, but notice the rib cage. Look how open, like sort of think about the left part of his rib cage, again, pointed more or less towards the target at setup. Look how open it is at impact. And those are two key fundamental pieces we're going to see in all these swings. The right shoulder is closer to the right hip, and the left rib cage is wildly open at setup. Now, while the rib cage is open, the shoulders are going to appear a little bit more square, and part of that's from your lead shoulder protraction and retraction. So left shoulder's pulled forward. I'll explain some more of that when we hop outside, but the shoulders are going to look a little bit more open, but the hips are open, the rib cage is open, the shoulders be a little bit more square. We said the right shoulder and the right hip get closer together. Now also note the difference in the arm structure. So at impact, the trail arm is much more bent compared to where it was at setup. In with that, you can see more of his lead arm above the trail arm, more than you can at setup. And you'll also note the angle of the shaft is more vertical. So there's a bunch of differences here compared to the setup and impact position. See the overall height of the head where he was here compared to this, and a lot of that's that right side bend. But again, keying in on the right shoulder and right hip. So I just want to show you a couple different examples here. You can see this across the board. And this is the same whether we're looking at driver or iron shot to varying degrees, but the same sort of idea. So let's look at setup versus impact. So let's pull him in here. So same thing, look at the right shoulder compared to the right hip, and notice how those are closer together at impact. So we've got this bending right of the spine, the right side bend. Look at how much more open the rib cage is compared to at setup. So both of those two key fundamentals, and he'll see the same things: hip open, rib cage open, shoulders appearing more square with the lead shoulder protraction. The trail arm is more bent. At impact, you can see more of the lead arm above the trail arm, and then the overall shaft angle is going to be more vertical. Now, a lot of these players, you'll also see, if you notice, that trail leg is starting to work in, that trail foot will come up off of the ground slightly. That's another piece we're going to see pretty much across the board. So another model swing we would use here. Let's pull in Grant and get him into impact. We'll see a lot of the same fundamental pieces. Right, so the hip's much more open, the rib cage is much more open, the shoulder's more square. The distance between the right shoulder and the right hip get closer together. The angle of the shaft at impact is more vertical. Right, the right arm is more bent. We can start to see the left arm above the right arm. We'll do one more. I think you guys are getting the point here. So another model swing we use a lot is going to be Hideki. So we get him to impact, same sort of things. Rib cage much more open, right shoulder, right hip much closer together compared to where they started with. Shoulders appearing more square. The right arm more bent compared to setup. You can see the lead arm above the right arm. Overall lowering, right, relative to the starting position, mainly from the side bend. You can see the trail foot slightly coming off the ground. The shaft angle more vertical than it was at impact. So there's a couple key fundamentals. What I really want to focus on when we go out here is this trail shoulder getting closer to the hip while the rib cage is getting much more open. And that's really the key move for us to focus on.
All right, so there we saw the impact alignments, right? The positions that we're really looking for in motion that are important. Maybe some of those are just like what you thought they'd be, and maybe there's one or two pieces in there that you haven't seen before. I know when I first really started to look at impact, it was pretty eye-opening. There's a couple things like the right arm underneath the left that I showed you, the shoulder motion that I kind of wasn't aware of. And beyond that, what really opened my mind and started to change my game was when I started to train impact. We did some videos maybe last summer, the summer beforehand, about impact drills, learning how to get yourself into the positions that we had mentioned at impact, using a mirror, using a video, and then learning how to hit from those positions. And we also talked, we had a core-driven video that we'll put at the end of this one with similar things. But I think understanding where you're trying to go, and then more importantly, understanding the feels that you need to have is really important. When we look at those two, right, I highlighted two things for a reason. Number one is the right shoulder getting closer to the right hip. You can see that from the down the line angle. And number two is the rib cage opening. Now, if we went through there and I pulled up, I don't know, maybe 5 or so players, and we did like 500 or 5,000, you would see those two commonalities amongst elite level ball strikers. In the simplest concept, when you take your setup, for me to go from where I am at setup to impact, you should have and be feeling when you pose it a stretch up your left side and a crunch of your right side. So the right side crunch comes from right side bend. If I stood up and my right shoulder went down towards my right hip, that's right side bend. My right shoulder's getting closer to my hip, right? Now, as I turn towards the target as I do that, that's how I get that right shoulder crunch, the little lines in the shirt. That's part number one. The second part is the rib cage or left side stretching. Now that left side stretching is initiated by our core or rib cage opening. one of the things we all fall into, and I'm part of it too, is we get so talking about hip rotation, hip rotation, hip rotation, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody, that we forget or lose sight of the fact that like our body, our trunk, our core needs to be rotating. So I like to feel with this, my left rib cage and my whole core area is opening. So my left rib cage and this whole oblique, my lat, all of that feels stretched as my right shoulder feels crunched. And those are the two key pieces that I would start posing impact positions with a mirror video. And I bet that it's gonna take a couple rehearsals just to get to where you actually want. Like for example, I got my iPad behind me. If I was to start to pose some impact, I feel the left side stretch, right side crunch. It might take me one or two looking into a mirror to get those pieces, right? The shaft angle slightly higher, the left arm's above the right arm, my shoulders are a little bit more level, left rib cage is open, right shoulder's crunched. Now, for me, when I do that, I notice as I'm feeling the side crunch that I'm closer to the ball with my upper body than what feels normal. And that's an indicator that when I swing, I don't get enough of those two pieces, right? I need to feel more of those. And that's the point of this. When you do the impact posing, I want you to feel, oh wow, X, Y, Z feels much different than normal. I must not be doing that. How do I do it? Well, I need to train it in, build it in, short, slow, and then build up. So I love the impact drills, right? So the impact drills, we'll link a video at the end of this, a recommended, that'll go to those impact drills. So you'll see how to do this more, but what I like to do is get the pose right. Left side feels stretched. So from my hip to my shoulder is completely stretched out, and my right side feels crunched. Now we talked about the hips are way open, the rib cage is open, right, quite a bit, but the shoulders appear closed. That's a little bit of a mystery, I think, for people. And the reason the shoulders stay closed, even though the rib cage is open, the chest is pointed in front of the ball, is because of protraction. So with our shoulder, if you hold your hand out in front, you could pull your shoulder back. That's retract, you're kind of like squeezing your shoulder blades together. That's a retract, or you could push your shoulder blades forward, kind of like bad posture. That'd be protraction. So I can open up my rib cage and chest, here would be normal, but if I protract my shoulder, now my shoulders are back to square. Here's my shoulder retracted, my shoulder should look open. Here's my protracted shoulder, forward. So hips open, rib cage open, shoulders more square. How I would start to train this in and actually hit is get a really good feel of what those impact positions feel like and key in and hone in on one or two pieces. Like for me, for instance, let's say I feel that right side crunching and my body a little bit closer than normal. I'm gonna confirm that with video and I'm gonna start short and slow and see if I can get back through that same spot in motion. So I feel the right side crunch, the right arm a little bit lower than my left. Let's go ahead and feel that same thing. And I'm gonna try and get right back through that in motion. Now I'll get a little bit of feedback based on how I hit it, how it feels, but ultimately I'd have my live view set up, I'd have my iPad or mirror, right, video, where I would go back and I would actually look at that and say, okay, take a picture of where I want my impact to be. Here's my model, here's me posing impact, and then when I hit, here's where I actually got to, and I'd start to subtly make adjustments. That's how you start to change a pattern. So again here, rib cage, left side stretch, right side crunch. Left side stretch, right side crunch. I'm really feeling that right side crunching feel. And I'm gonna try and feel like that same thing when I work through impact. So I forgot one little piece that I wanna include in here as a caveat. When you're doing these impact training and you actually get yourself into a mirror looking like how you want, and you're not used to having that level of rotation with the rib cage or side bend with the shoulder down, keep in mind, A, it's gonna need to feel like your rib cage is much more open than you're used to or comfortable for. That's where the stretch is. But B, when your shoulder starts to go down and crunches, you're gonna be closer to the ground. So if you normally don't have that and you're standing up and not rotating, your arms are really throwing and lengthening. So you get farther from the ball, your arms throw and lengthen. That's not gonna work with your new shoulder motion. So if I have good side bend and I'm closer to the ball and I throw my arms and wrists, you're gonna hit it really fat, okay? So what you need to do when you do this is get the arm motion correct. Notice in those, the right arm's more bent and the right wrist is more bent. So as the shoulder goes down, bend your right arm and bend your right wrist more. That'll be the piece that'll even out the distance so you can hit the ball solid. Ideally, you go in, you do that, you hit some better shots, you make an improvement right away, but really what I want to see is change, effective change of your swing. That's where video comes into play. That's where coaching comes into play. If you hang out to the end of this video, I'll show you more on the impact posing, how to actually start to train that in. Hope to see you at cogornogolf.com. Remember, absolutely zero risk. Try us out. Risk-free, money-back guarantee. Would love to see you there.